Hello and welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer. In the video today I'm going to go through these spells that are currently unique to Warlocks. This isn't to say that in the future these spells will only be unique to Warlocks. So let's have a look here. I've got a motley crew of 4 different Warlocks, and between them they've got all the spells that are unique. In fact, all of their first level spells are the unique Warlock spells. And the order I'm going to go through them is starting with Eldritch Blast, since it's the cantrip. That's unique, and then after that I'm going to go through all of the level 1 spells in alphabetical order as is normal. I'm not going to go through all the spells available to Warlocks because most of the spells available to Warlocks are also available to Wizards. So if you're interested in the other spells, just go and check out my Wizard videos, and the point of that is to try and keep this video shorter and so I don't have to repeat myself. First up, we've got Eldritch Blast. It's an evocation cantrip. Conjure a beam of crackling energy that deals 1d10 force damage. It's a ranged magical attack roll, range of 60 feet. This is the mainstay of a Warlock's damage. And I've already got my characters to level 2. To make this spell even better, I strongly recommend you take the Eldritch Invocation Agonizing Blast. You get to choose 2 different invocations, and I really feel like one of them, if you want to be doing damage with your Warlock, you need to take Agonizing Blasts. What it does is adds force damage that's equal to your Charisma modifier, which is currently at 3. And as we level up and make the Charisma modifier higher, it will go up to 4. There aren't really any downsides to this spell at all. The damage is force damage, which is rarely resisted. It's an attack roll, so we can help improve our chance to hit, although this guy can't, and I accidentally skipped a turn. By hiding, having high grounds, attacking from the shadows, those sorts of things. And with the ability to add this extra damage, it's just very reliable and is better than any wizard or any spellcaster's cantrip if you pick Agonizing Blast, because you get to add damage to it. And it's from range, so your Warlock's not going to be in any danger. This is a clear 10 out of 10 spell, and the cantrips aren't going to get any better than this for almost any class. That was lucky, critical hit. And since it is a ranged attack, it can critical hit, but do bear in mind that the critical hit damage doesn't double the force damage from Agonizing Blast. It only lets you roll twice. Instead of 1d10, it'll be 2d10. Honestly, one of the main reasons people usually pick Warlocks is to pick up Eldritch Blast. You can have your other characters pick Magic Initiate Warlock to try and get Eldritch Blast, but they'll never get the Agonizing Blast extra damage to put on top of it. Something I didn't mention earlier is that the spellcasting modifier, or spellcasting ability for all the Warlock spells is Charisma. So if you're going to build a Warlock, you want Charisma to be the highest stat that you can. I've just finished the fight against the Intellect Devourers, and something I probably should have done beforehand, but it makes it easy for recording just to do it this way, is we've got Armour of Agathys here. So it's a level 1 Abjuration spell, inflicts Armour of Agathys. The time duration on it is -1, which means it lasts until the next long rest. So a Spectral Frost covers you, gain 5 temporary hit points, and deal 5 cold damage to any creature that hits you with a melee attack. This is really good. It doesn't require concentration. So I can cast it, and now I've got an extra 5 hit points, and anything that hits me takes 5 cold damage. The great thing about Warlocks is that their spell slots reset on a short rest. So I can see I've used 1 of 2 spell slots already. Click on short rest, I get that spell slot back. So what I suggest you do if you do take this spell is as soon as you finish your long rest, cast it, and just take 1 of your 2 short rests to refill the spell slots available. There's no downside to this. The only thing you need to make note of is that it doesn't stack with any other source of temporary hit points. So actually when I cast it, I lost the condition Dark One's Blessing, which I'd had from being having a patron of the Fiend and killed something. And this overwrites that. One nice thing is that at level 2, not at level 2, with this using a 2nd level spell slot, Armour of Agathys actually gains 10 temporary hit points and deals 10 cold damage to any creature that attacks you. So this is a really beneficial spell to have. I'm going to rate it I didn't see any reason not to rate it 10 out of 10. Because it's a permanent buff you can cast and doesn't require concentration. While it doesn't make you more difficult to hit, it means you can withstand more hits, and you can combine it with the cleric spell Aid to give you even more hit points. So I've tried to set up a situation where the one Warlock with Armour of Agathys is going to get hit. We've got Armour of Agathys condition, remains until fully rested. Got to make sure I actually have a melee attack done against me. Just want to quickly go back to Eldritch Blast here. One of the other Eldritch invocations you can take is Repelling Blast, which will knock creatures back 15 feet, and there, knock them back down, 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 and they took 9 bludgeoning damage because of the fall, on top of the 10 force damage from the damage roll and 3 from the agonizing blast. So I don't think the melee characters are going to make it to me quite yet. So I have to wait one more turn. I'm going to help them out though. So here we go. Now, we'll see here, actually, that Armour of Agathys didn't work. I lost the condition after being attacked. They didn't take any cold damage. And, well, I expect the temporary hit points to have gone because I took damage. I'm going to try this one more time and see whether the cold damage can get done or not. So they didn't hit, so they didn't do any damage. That wasn't a melee attack, so it shouldn't have done damage. But we'll see. Oh, that didn't do damage. Gonna go around in circles. There we are. So this time Gimmelbach was hit for 5 cold damage. So I'm not certain. I'm going to have to test this. I'm not certain whether Warlock might die here. Whether the condition didn't work because I took a short rest after casting it, or because the temporary hit points were lost. So what I'm going to do this time is test it just using my own characters. So I'm going to try and... So I did a melee attack, and they took some damage, 8 damage, and no cold damage got done. I'll cast this again. I'm going to keep going until I hit. This time it worked. But then we lost the condition. So I'm going to try this, I'm going to reload, try this one more time. And I'm going to try and do damage less than temporary hit points and see if it works. And we can see damage done is 14. So it looks like the spell isn't really working as it is described. Whether it's intended or not is a different matter. So to get use from this spell, it looks like we're not allowed to take a short rest. Because when I did that first attack with the dagger, it did 4... Let's just double check actually, just want to make sure I'm not saying anything wrong here. Yeah, it did 4 damage. And that is how much damage my Warlock took. Oh, she took 5 damage. The temporary hit points weren't used up. So my rating of the spell is going down for sure. Because to actually use this effectively and properly, you have to cast this before your long rest. Oh, sorry, before your short rest. And not take a short rest after casting it. Which means it's going to take up one of your 2 fairly valuable spell slots. If it worked as intended, I would definitely leave it at 10 out of 10. But because of this use of one of 2 spell slots, this is going to go down to my gut feeling is 6 out of 10. Because you're going to be wanting to use at least one of your other spell slots for one of the spells coming up later, probably Hex, which then leaves you with no spell slots to do anything else with. It's not a bad spell, the effects are actually quite good and doesn't require concentration, but is kind of broken at the moment. Next up is Arms of Hadar, don't know how to pronounce this. I'm going to go with Hadar. Right. Arms of Hadar. Inflicts Arms of Hadar. Call forth tendrils of dark energy. Targets take 2d6 necrotic damage and can't take reactions. It is a strength saving throw, and it is all targets within 10 feet of the caster. So I'm not going to cast it now on my party members, but you can see that all the characters are highlighted. So I'm going to have to get into combat to show you this. So here's, I think one of the problems with Arms of Hadar is actually getting into a good position where it kind of feels worth it to try the spell. Because at the moment, okay, I have 4 enemies, but they're all over the place. They're not next to each other. So I'm not going to use it this round. I'm going to try and create the situation where I have at least 2 melee combatants next to me. Okay, it's taken me far too long to get to this position where I can actually use Arms of Hadar effectively. And I've had quite a few times different Warlocks going down on the ground, trying to keep these 2 enemies alive. Anyway, here we go. It just about covers both the targets. Let's see the damage it's done. So, it only actually hit Gimblebok, even though this guy's character was highlighted. And Gimblebok passed his saving throw. One of the downsides of the spell is the saving throw. One nice thing is that it does do damage, no matter whether they pass a saving throw or not. Overall, I'm not that impressed with this spell. For a few reasons. Firstly, getting into a position where you can use it without hurting your teammates is quite hard. So if I use it here, I'm going to make CVG Goo, a great old one, take some damage. Maybe I can actually move further around without inflicting an opportunity attack. Maybe this will work, maybe this won't. Maybe go back this way a bit. Right, I'm probably going to be hitting 1 or 2 of my own team members here. Let's use it. So let's see what damage done. So Taman was hit this time. Gimblebok was also hit. It says Arms of Hadar, and I don't know if anyone else has got this problem, but when I'm trying to examine enemies now, I'm getting level -1, armor class -1. But in theory, Taman now can't take reactions. So yeah, it's a saving throw, not that great. The area of effect would be nice if it didn't hit enemies. I mean, if it didn't hit team members, but it hits everyone, and you can't not make it hit everyone. At the end of the day, not taking reactions isn't that good of an effect. Obviously, it's nice if enemies don't take reactions, but if you don't want an opportunity attack, you can just jump out of the way. And that's the only reaction enemies tend to make anyway at the moment. I mean, the fact it's an AoE can be nice, but to use this, your Warlock has to be getting into close combat, into melee range, and that's not what most Warlocks are built for. There we are, I can use it again. Killing my own team members here, right? Warlocks don't normally have a high armor class. No, this one, the armor class I think of all my Warlocks is 14. Oops, wrong button. There it was, yeah, it's 14 at the top here. It's 14, 14, 14, 14. And until they can take a feat for medium armor, or there is the possibility of having mage armor cast on them using a Eldritch Invocation, you could get a feat for medium armor. You might take a race that already has medium armor proficiency. But to really use the spell, yeah, getting to close combat isn't really ideal for most Warlocks. So I'm only going to give this a 4 out of 10. It's got far too many downsides to be particularly useful. Our next spell is Dissonant Whispers. Whisper a discordant melody to a creature. It takes 3d6 psychic damage and becomes frightened. It's a wisdom saving throw, range 60 feet. On a successful save, the creature only takes half damage. An action to cast. So let's just choose the creature 65%, it's all the same. Let's try it on Tomb Scribe. Didn't work. Right, they passed the saving throw. because saving throws at the moment are very low, only 13 is the highest we can get between levels 1 and 3. But it still did some damage. The major downside to this spell is that it is a saving throw. Apart from that, the spell's effects they're alright. So we did some damage, not a huge amount, 3. It's psychic damage, which is rarely resisted at the moment in the game. And we'll try and make another creature frightened. So I've got another Warlock here. Dissonant Whispers. Let's try it on the Entombed Warrior. Brilliant. Alright, they are frightened. So frightened creature has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, while the source of its fear is within line of sight, and the creature is forced to run from the source of its fear. If this works, this is a really good condition, because, well, we can see it's got kind of some major debuffs. It's going to try and run away. If it attacks, it'll have disadvantage on the ability checks. Also, this spell does not require concentration, which is a really good thing for it. Let's just apply Hex, just because we can. This spell is alright. The main downside is the fact it's a saving throw, so the chances of it working aren't as high as attack rolls. And look at that, I can get high ground. I made a shorts video earlier this week. I'm just going to point it out one more time, right? 55% chance to hit, but if we target the feet, we can get 80% because it's the difference between where the start and end of this white line is. So next thing we'll show you is what's happening to the Entombed Warrior. Let's see what happens to it, since the target, or the source of the fear, is within line of sight. Doesn't even matter whether that hit my Warlock or not, because there's no concentration. Do you know what, I'm just going to cast it again on that one. Did enough damage to kill it. In fact, she's just going to get closer and closer, and just to see if this works nicely. Oh, our target is out of sight, that's why I can't cast it on that one. That's on you. That just killed them. So it lost the frightened condition now, because it only lasts for 2 turns. So overall, it's a 6 out of 10 for me. The other downside, apart from the fact it's a saving throw, is this is only available to Warlocks that have a Great Old One patron, and at the moment, those Warlocks are, I'm going to say, objectively weaker, because they don't actually have any benefit from having that patron. Whereas with the Fiend patron, you get the chance of having temporary hit points. So to take this spell, you have to take the weaker Warlock subclass. Hopefully later in early access or in the full game, the patron of the Great Old One actually gets better and has some uses. If this was available to all Warlocks, I'd definitely rate this higher, because it's got some uses. It's got guaranteed damage, which can help finish off enemies. Next spell is Hellish Rebuke. The next time you take damage, you use your reaction to surround your foe in hellish flames that deal 2d10 fire damage. On a successful save, the target still takes half damage. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell us what the save is here. We'll see when the spell is cast eventually what it is. In fact, in front of me I've got the player's handbook from 5th edition open in front of me, so I'm going to quickly look it up. Anyway, something interesting to note is it doesn't take an action or bonus action to cast. It just uses the spell slot. So you can have used your action and bonus action in your turn and still cast Hellish Rebuke, but you do need a spell slot left. This character has already used 1 spell slot, so only has 1 left. So what I'm going to do, just to prove that this works, is cast... Sorry, getting the wrong buttons here. Cast Eldritch Blast first. And I'll even hide. So I've got no bonus action or action left, but I can still cast Hellish Rebuke. So this is actually a spell that's supposed to be used as a reaction in a tabletop version. So I've cast it, noticing I've come out of hiding. And down here in the bottom right corner, we've got an extra reaction. Now, there's no way to know whether you've got it active or not. Well, there's a circle going around it, but if I click on it, that circle doesn't stop going around. But it says the next time you take damage, use your reaction to surround your attacker in hellish flames to deal 2d10 fire damage. This is a dexterity saving throw. I've checked while we've been playing. And I'm hopefully going to be able to show you this happen.
Hey, someone's in here.
So do note there that this character, Mary, did attack the Warlock with Hellish Rebuke, but because they missed, no damage was done. So what I'm going to do to speed up the process is hide all my other characters. So you see I've got no spell slots left and I can't cast it again, and I've still got this choice. Again, I'm clicking on it. Oh, it's turned it off now. Sometimes these reactions don't show whether they're working very well or not. So I've clicked it again and nothing seems to be happening. There it is. Right, this circle doesn't always come back. Right, let's just get a bit closer. Leave you in hiding. So they took damage, and there's the reaction. You just heard it. They made the saving throw. They got a 5. I'll wait until they've stopped moving just to show that the game makes it a dexterity saving throw, not just the tabletop version. So here we are. Made a saving throw against Hellish Rebuke. DC 13. This is plus dexterity modifier. And here it does actually say attack/save dexterity. So I'm going to skip to the hurt characters next turn. Hopefully they don't actually get knocked down. Unfortunately they did. What I was going to try and show you was whether they still have Hellish Rebuke. They shouldn't do. This uses a spell slot every time you want to cast it. So at the moment, the way reactions currently work in Baldur's Gate 3, this isn't a very good spell. And I've seen lots of complaints online about the way reactions work, and I tend to agree with them. It would be much easier, much nicer if a pop-up appeared saying, you know, you've been hit, do you want to use Hellish Rebuke? Yes or no. It wouldn't add that much time to gameplay, considering at the moment we still have to choose whether to have it on or not beforehand anyway. And the spell is indiscriminate at the moment. It's just the first attack that deals damage it will get cast. Whereas, really, you want to choose who you do damage to, because maybe someone's on a lower number of hit points. My rating for Hellish Rebuke is actually going to be quite low, because it's a saving throw. You still take damage, the enemy still takes damage even if they do pass the saving throw, but the damage isn't that great, and it's just against a single creature. And once you've used it, you can't use it again, and you can't choose when to cast it, apart from whether you want to use it, use your reaction for one particular turn or not. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Also because it uses one of your 2 fairly valuable spell slots just to do 2d10 damage, when there are other spells that do better amounts of damage. So yeah, I don't really recommend taking Hellish Rebuke. The next spell on the list is Hex. I've already made a shorts video about this. So the bonus action to cast uses a spell slot. Curse a creature, it takes an additional 1d6 necrotic damage whenever you hit it with an attack. The creature also has disadvantage on ability checks for one ability of your choosing. You want this spell for the damage. The fact that it gives disadvantage on an ability check really isn't that powerful, because please don't make the mistake of thinking that an ability check is the same as a saving throw. It is not. There are very few dexterity. There are very few ability checks taken during battle, and this is a spell to be used in a battle, in a fight. In the tabletop version, there are a few ability checks that could be taken. One being stealth. It could be wisdom perception checks to find someone. There could be strength, athletics, or dexterity acrobatics checks to stop being grappled, but the grappling isn't in the game. So yeah, don't use this for the disadvantage on the ability checks. It is purely for the damage. I'm actually not doing so well in this fight. In trying to set up the Hellish Rebuke, I've had one Warlock downed several times. Some of my other Warlocks are missing some hit points, and basically all my enemies are still alive, with very, very little damage done to them. So I'm going to be using Hex, but I can't use it with this character. This is probably the one downside of Hex, is that it uses a bonus action, which isn't necessarily a massive downside, but jump is really important in this game because it's jump and disengage, and shoving can be very useful as well. So I'm going to go to another Warlock. They're probably going to go down. Oh no, they missed, that was lucky. So right here, reapply Hex. So if you've already cast Hex and the creature you targeted died, you get this option of reapply Hex. You don't have to keep recasting this spell on this different creatures, as long as your concentration hasn't been broken. So there we are. Cast Hex. So I've got a 60% chance to hit with my dagger. Let's just check Eldritch Blast. I wouldn't imagine it's very good. Yeah, 36% because I'm too close. So I'm going to try and get around the back. There we are. Get the backstab bonus. So, I mean, it's a dagger. 1d4 damage. Isn't that great? But, right, what did I do? 2 plus 3 from the dagger. Then an extra 1d4. I almost doubled my damage there. And that's really not that bad. And here we go, someone else who can cast Hex. This time I'll get them to use Eldritch Blast. And just to show you, right, we can cast Hex multiple times on the same creature or enemy. This person's got 3 different hexes now. It doesn't matter, you can stack them. But it's not like when you do damage, you do an extra 1d6 for every hex. It's just each character has their own individual hex on any creature, any enemy. So unfortunately that missed out. So concentration broken, mostly because they got knocked down. That's the only real downside to Hex, is the concentration element. That Warlocks don't have very many spells that are concentration, so you're not fighting and having to pick and choose very carefully for what concentration spell you want to cast with your Warlock. Hex should be the go-to spell. And there might be some others. There we are. Look at that. Let's just go through all that damage. 8 from the force damage from the 1d10 roll, 3 from the Agonizing Blast, and 3 from necrotic damage. So Hex stacks really well with Agonizing Blast on for your Eldritch Blast, doing what is normally just 1d10 into your 1d10 plus your Charisma modifier plus 1d6 every turn, as long as you've got concentration maintained. And you can see here that because the creature died, I can reapply Hex whenever I want. The really nice thing is that in between creatures, you're not concentrating on the spell, even though it kind of says, oh, see, this doesn't actually say concentration, we can just reapply Hex. In between creatures can't be knocked out of concentration, and you can take a short rest in between and so on. I've got to keep trying to win this battle. This Warlock hadn't cast Hex. Here we go again. Let's go for Charisma. Let's go for Barton. Attacking from shadows. This should be probably dead. Boom. Alright. Not quite a one-hit kill, but killed in one turn. Using bonus action and action. Hex is super strong. 10 out of 10. It links up really well with Eldritch Blast and Agonizing Blast. One thing you can also do that I'm not going to be able to show you with this character, because I've got to use the bonus action to actually cast Hex, we'll try it, is this should work if you're dual wielding. So let's just attack. Nice, killed him. Or killed her. So you can cast Hex and then attack with 2 attacks and do an extra 1d6 each time. So I'm going to try and show you that. One thing to note, which I don't think I'll be able to show you, is that if you get an opportunity attack, it will also apply. Every time you attack a creature, you are able to do this extra 1d6 damage. 2 daggers equipped. So yeah, they died on the first hit because I managed to do, I think maximum amount of damage I could do, 7 plus 6. 13 damage from the dagger. I've got one more chance here. They've got a few more hit points, so it's possible that I can show you this working. Might not hit with the hand axe, but of course I go in critical hit on that first hit. Yeah, the Hex damage is doubled. It says 2d6 there, although I just rolled really badly. Just managed only to get 3. But yeah, Hex, 10 out of 10. Take it, use it. My Warlock has gone and died in the background. Never mind, I'll sort that out. It's probably the best level 1 Warlock spell. It's time for the last spell in the list, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, and perhaps one of the least spells, as the saying goes. Last but not the least, but here, last is perhaps the least. So, It takes an action to cast, inflicts a creature with fits of laughter, leaving it prone and incapacitated. Attacks or save is a wisdom saving throw, concentration required. An incapacitated creature can't take actions or reactions at the end of its turn, or when it takes damage, the creature can try to shake off the effect. Prerequisite, the creature needs to have an intelligence score of 5 or higher. The description is wrong. Let's first see if it works, try and show you why. So that didn't work. This first downside of the spell, this is saving throw. Do you have another character with the spell though? So that's the first downside. The second downside, just like Dissonant Whispers, is you need to have a great Old One patron. As I said before, that's just the worst patron. Now let's, hopefully this works. Yes. And then we'll see the description is wrong. So the next time the Entombed Scribe has a turn, and I won't disturb the Scribe until then, is it will, if it passes its saving throw, it's not at the end of its turn. For some reason, it's been programmed to happen at the beginning of the turn. So they can take this, but they take their saving throw at the beginning of their turn, and then they get up and can attack. Which is not how the spell's supposed to work at all. It is supposed to work in the way that it is described at the end of their turn. So if it's, because this has worked, but might not actually take out any of their turns. They could easily have their turn. I've tried to move this guy back and hide him so he doesn't get targeted, because this is another downside, it's concentration, so I can't be using Hex, for example. There, it's past its saving throw. It hasn't actually lost a turn. I've used a level 1 spell slot and now it's attacking. This is pretty much awful. I'm going to try it on this one here. Good, it's worked. And one thing I don't like about the spell is the fact it doesn't make them paralysed. It just makes them unconscious and prone. If they were paralysed, you'd be guaranteed critical hits, and I can attack with my offhand, and I'm not 100% chance to hit, and it's not 100% chance to critical hit. And if I hit them, they get another chance to make their saving throw to stand back up. They might not. There, I did 3 damage, and it's past its saving throw. In the tabletop version of the spell, if the creature is hurt, they get to make another saving throw, just like in the game, but they actually have advantage on the wisdom saving throw if they're dealt damage while they're under the effects of the spell. And the spell doesn't even get better using a 2nd level spell slot. This is all it does. So even if you manage to use a 6th level spell slot eventually, or 5th level spell slot eventually, then it's just the same effects. It doesn't target more creatures, it doesn't last for longer, it doesn't lose concentration or anything. This is it. This is the limit of the spell. And it's awful. You can cast a spell, as I showed earlier, on a creature, have it successfully work, but they don't actually lose their next turn. So you've literally wasted your spell slot. It may as well have not worked in the first place. As a consequence, I mean, you may have seen my shorts video on this. I gave it a 2 out of 10 in my shorts video. I'll just about keep it, because if it works, you can take a creature out of combat. Maybe for a turn, if you're lucky. Maybe 2 turns. But it's almost a pointless spell. Like, Sleep, I know this isn't in the Warlock spell list, but Sleep will generally be much better. With some creatures are resistant to Sleep. You may as well use Hold Person over this spell, because at least you get your guaranteed critical hits. And it doesn't do any damage. I know not every spell has to deal damage, but it doesn't have any good effects. Now, before I end the video, I'm also going to show you what happens to each of these when you use a 2nd level spell slot. I'm not going to show you them being used, but I'm just going to show the descriptions. So I've got my Warlocks to level 3. I'm just going to have a look at the descriptions of the spells being cast using a level 2 spell slot. This is one difference between Warlocks and all the other spellcasting classes, is the way they cast spells, is they always cast at the maximum possible spell slot, but they get many fewer spell slots, but those spell slots are replenished in a short rest. Anyway, I'm going to try and go through these in alphabetical order. So we have got, to begin with, Armour of Agathys, which gives 10 temporary hit points and deals 10 cold damage to any creature that hits you with a melee attack. I would say this actually becomes appropriately powerful each time you have an increase in spell slot level. 10 temporary hit points is equivalent to almost 1 level of hit points worth, depending on the Constitution modifier, but yeah, This gives a decent extra number of hit points, and 10 cold damage isn't to be sniffed at, to be honest. So this is appropriately leveled up. Then it was Arms of Hadar, which is now 3d6 necrotic damage instead of 2d6, which is better, but also although it makes it more dangerous for the enemies, also makes it more dangerous for your allies if they're nearby. But it's still nice that it does go up. Dissonant Whispers over here. This is now 4d6 damage, so an extra 1d6 for an extra level spell slot, which I think it's okay. It's, you know, increasing damage doesn't make you more likely to actually have the spell succeed in affecting a creature, but it's nice that the damage does go up. Then we have got Hellish Rebuke. It goes up to 3d10, and it's nice that it's a d10, but I wouldn't be casting this with a spell slot. In all honesty, it's not worth it, since you can't choose exactly when it gets used. Hex, there's no difference. In the tabletop version, when Hex is cast using a 3rd or 4th level spell slot, then you can maintain concentration for up to 8 hours, and if it's 5th slot or higher, then it can be 24 hours. But here, even using a level 1 or 2 spell slot, it still lasts for your long rest, so this won't ever change Hex. It's a bit of a shame, but I suppose if the damage went up, it would get too powerful. And Tasha's Hideous Laughter, already mentioned it, doesn't get any better, stays the same. Not worth casting using a 1st level spell slot. It's definitely not worth casting using when it's at level 2. The spells that do cause damage will increase the amount of damage to die by 1 for each spell slot above the 1st. And Armour of Agathys becomes more potent. But do remember that you can't cast Armour of Agathys and then use a short rest. Okay, so that's it for this video. Having a quick look at the Warlock spells, the spells that are unique to Warlocks. Let me know what you think. Maybe you disagree with one of my ratings, whether I made it too good or too little. Also, let me know if you have any questions. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Please do consider subscribing, it's greatly appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.